Could you walk me through the key technical steps? So, what are the key steps involved for someone who is actually getting the surgery done?
Yeah, so for a hair transplant, there's three basic like steps, right? There's the part where you have to create the sites, like the homes of where the grafts will live. Like, so you have to create the, it's like gardening, you got to create the whatever, dig it out. And then you have to get the grafts. So you have to like have your donor area identified. Usually it's the back of the head, but sometimes we're taking from the neck or the chest. Like we get creative with that. But usually it's the back of the head. So you have to harvest the grafts, right? And classically, there was like the strip technique where you cut out like a segment of the scalp and then break it up into the little grafts under the microscope outside of the body. And then around like 2010, FUE, which is the one by one extraction, became more popular. Excuse me. So that's like mostly what we're doing, especially for men. For women, we still 50-50 or maybe 40% of the time we'll do an FUT strip procedure to get the grafts. But that's step two is get the grafts. And step three is to place the grafts into the homes or the holes or the slits, whatever you want to call them, that were created. That's it. I mean, it's a three-step process. That's the basic steps. I mean, there's a lot of nitty-gritty things, but yeah, but that's what it is. You need a source, you need like a destination, and you need to create like a home for the graphs.
And how precise do you need to be when you're placing the hairs into the recipient sites?
Well, so the two basic ways to like create the sites, one is with like a blade or a needle, where that's the way I do it. So it's like pre-made sites where you're making the sites first, and then later on when you have the graphs, the team will put the graphs into the sites, right? And the site will dictate if it's done well and properly. It'll dictate the angulation, the direction, the density, all that's it's like the blueprint for the result is how the sites are made. So I always do that 100% of the time because that's the result. Of course, it matters how your team handles graphs and all that stuff. But the other way to do it is to use what's called an implanter pen. And that's like this little pen-like thing that has like a release button on it. And so you feed the graft into it, and it could be sharp or blunt actually. But let's say it's sharp. So you put it into the skin, to the scalp, and you just release, and there's like a twisting motion, and it leaves the graft in place. So you don't have to then pre-make the site for the graft. It's essentially like a single motion. That's kind of those are the ways to do it. And so some people I just learned more on the side of pre-made sites, so that's what I feel comfortable doing. Other people learn more about like the implanter pens. There's pros and cons of each, but I like the flexibility that the pre-made sites give me because once you start using the pen, there's the risk of popping. Anytime you start placing grafts, you can get popping, and that's like you put one in, and then the neighbor starts to come out. So now you've got to readjust and get the neighbor back in and then come back in and put your, so it just kind of slows things down, in my opinion. So we're more efficient making sites early on in the day, and I always do that. Then we harvest the grafts, and then the afternoon is placing one by one.
So, how many hours does this take?
Long time, yeah. So we're doing bigger surgeries for hair than we used to, right? When I started, it's like, smaller procedure can take all day. So it's like, I was doing maybe up to, I don't know, 1,400 grafts, 1,500 grafts, something like that. 1,800 felt like a forever day, like it was never going to end. Nowadays, we're doing cases of like 2,500, 2,600, sometimes even a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, it's still a long day. Like it could take us like 10 hours, sometimes even a little bit more, because there's like actual working time, and then there's like just time that people are in the office because it takes us time to set everything up, to figure out a plan. I'm super like I mean, we released a video a few weeks ago on like it's called How to Fix a Receding Hairline. And it's actually like my thought process for designing hairlines. So I'm very anal about that process. So a lot of people just draw a line, they just come in with a Sharpie and just draw a line, a thick line, and it's just like that's what we're doing. You could do that. I mean, you can eyeball it and just draw a line and that's fine. But we measure and I use little tiny dots instead of lines because I don't, I mean, when you have a line this thick, are you putting the grafts on the top of the line, the bottom of the line, the middle? Where are you putting the grafts? So I use like little tiny dots, and everything is kind of measured, and like, it's just there's an artistic side. And that's, I think, something that people don't realize. They're focused on how much is it per graft? Am I going to Turkey? Am I staying? It doesn't matter. It's just like you pick your surgeon and someone who has like an artistic view on things. And it doesn't, if it's cheaper, great. If it's Turkey, if it's Mexico, it doesn't matter. It's just like I always tell people, like, you gotta pick the surgeon. Don't focus on this place is a little cheaper than that place. Like, that's not, the people are, and then they also, people will hyper fixate on like which tool is being used. It's like, are you using the artist robot? Are you using, the latest implanter pen? Like, what tool are you? And I honestly, I used to be more like, let me tell you what we're using. And I still do. I don't want to be rude, but I'm like, and sometimes I just come out and say it. I'm like, it shouldn't matter to you what I use. And that's truly how I feel. Because like, if you go for a haircut, right? Like, are you picking, assuming, like it's someone who like, not just like you randomly, you're like, oh, I just need a haircut. But if you're like, your regular person, like you're picking the person, right? Who's going to cut you. Like, are you ever asking them like, what scissor are they using? Or like, what's the spray? I mean, it's just like they use what they use, like, but you like what they create, right? And so you go back to that person. So it's really like that with surgery, but I think people they get lost. They don't know the questions to ask. They don't know what to look for. So they're asking about the robot. They're asking about, whatever. I don't know who's doing the surgery. I mean, there's certain questions that are fine to ask, but it's just like look at the before and after gallery and get a sense, is this like artistic work? Is this honest representation of results? And can you find something else out about the person online? Do they have reviews? Do they have some video clips on their, something to give you a sense of comfort? And then call the office, schedule an appointment. It's shocking how many hair clinics have like it's the sales rep who's doing the consultation often, which is insane. But that's how it is. I mean, in most other cosmetic surgery clinics, that's just not really the case. Like, if you're getting a breast augmentation and you schedule a consultation, you're going to meet with the surgeon. But for whatever reason in the hair world, and I think maybe because of the Bosleys of the world, where it's like, the franchise mentality, right? If we want to improve our bottom line and overall kind of business efficiency, yeah, stick the sales rep in there, have them talk to the patient, keep your doctor for other things, whatever. But like, it's not fair for patients because like they're trying to get a surgery. They're not trying to get a haircut here. So that's, yeah. So make sure that like for patients that they're talking to an actual surgeon in consultation, and not like you'll talk to the salesperson and they show up day of and then maybe they'll shake hands with the surgeon. I mean, that's not right.